Thank you everyone for joining. My name is Prashant Mohan and I'm gonna talk about what exactly CISSP is about and how to, just a basic introduction about the 8 domains and the exam mindset and the domain descriptions about it and what exactly are the few important topics from the exam perspective that we're going to see today. But before we proceed, just a brief introduction about myself. Uh, I have been into information security industry for more than a decade now, worked with various corporations into financial services and and banking industries. So worked into various domains of information security like identity and access management, security operations, auditing and compliance, and a few more to mention. So let's talk more about what exactly CISSP is. If you have any questions, please park the questions for the end of the session so that we can have more discussions on your problems and doubts so that we can take it at the end of the session. About CISSP, what exactly CISSP is all about? So it stands for Certified Information Systems Security Professional. It's one of the most globally recognized certification in the information security industry. So if you have this credential, people understand that you have gone through the rigorous process of understanding about security and its various aspects of multiple domains. Okay, so it is going to help you not only understanding about what exactly different domains of security talks about, but also have a good understanding of if you're responsible for managing the security or improving the security posture of your organization, it's definitely going to help you. What exactly are the prerequisites of for anyone to have CISSP or appear for the CISSP? So appearing for CISSP is something that you can appear irrespective of any minimum experience or the things that's mentioned in the IC square guidelines. But yes, to obtain the credential, you need to have minimum of 5 years of experience in 2 or more of the 8 domains of the CISSP CBK. So what are those domains? 8 domains. We're shortly going to discuss more about it. And if a candidate has a 4-year college degree or any equivalent, then they can apply for the credential with 1 year of waive off. So if you have a college degree like engineering with the 4-year regular course, then you do not have to obtain 5 years of experience. Probably you can just need 4 years of regular experience in 2 or more domains of CISSP CBK, and you can apply for the credentials. Okay, so if you need to know more about the experience requirement in for CISSP, you can look for more details in www.icsquare.org. Okay, let's talk about the syllabus. So a lot of people who have known for the CISSP history, so initially it started with 10 domains, and since 2015, they made the changes in the syllabus and they have reduced into 8 domains. Is it gonna be a good thing? Probably what they have done is they have just uh, included the rest of the 2 domains in one of these 8 domains listed out here. So what exactly are the domains? So domain 1 is about security and risk management. It has a weighting of 15%. Extremely important domain from the exam perspective. I'm going to talk more about each and every domains as we proceed further, but let's talk about how exactly they are weighted in the ISC square exams. Domain 2 is about asset security. It has 10% of the examination weightings, relatively shorter domain, less content, but yes, it is indeed important. Domain 3, security architecture and engineering. So it contains a lot of various domains within one particular domain. So it includes about security architecture, different models, and then it also includes the cryptography and the physical security. So in the what it used to happen, 3 different domains in the previous syllabus before 2015, now it is included in just one single domain. And yes, the examination weightage is of 13%. Then we have domain 4, communication and network security. A huge domain in terms of the content. It includes a lot of things. So definitely, whenever you see a lot of in any domain in the CBK or any textbook with a big content, chances of questions from that particular domain are relatively high, because the people who write the questions for IC² exams, they get a lot of content, and that is the reason they pick up a lot of questions from that particular domain. So examination weightings for this domain is 14%. Then we have domain 5. It used to be called as access control. The name has been changed to identity and access management. Indeed, a very important domain. A lot of crucial concepts like SSO and federated identity are still very relatable and relevant from the exam perspective. So it does include 13% of the examination weightings. Now we move to domain 6, that's security assessment and testing. It is again relatively shorter domain compared to others. Examination weightings are 12%. It's the new inclusion after 2015, where it talks about application security, various methods of testing in applications. So people who have a background of penetration testing or application security testing, they would find it quite interesting. Then we have security operations. A huge domain in terms of the content. It includes 4 different parts. So incident monitoring, incident response, then security operations like making sure that you follow the configuration management and change management. And then you have disaster recovery. So from the operations perspective, making sure that you take a proper backup in case of any disaster, you restore the data from the backup taken. Then incident and ethics, how do you behave ethically? So from an exam perspective, it has 13% of the examination weightings. Then moving towards domain 8, it has software development security. It is more about whenever an organization develops the software, what exactly are the different phases for software development life cycle. So it talks about SDLC, all the different phases, and what all happens in multiple phases. It also include a brief introduction about how does the malicious code or malicious software looks like, and what are the various kind of viruses and malwares that are present. Domain weightings from the exam perspective, 10%. Now, the question that normally I get from a lot of people, that the kind of weighting percentage that has been distributed by IC², is it like equally distributed, and that is how the examination patterns are made? Well, that's a little debatable thing, because a lot of people experience questions that are they experience in the real exam. They are heavily tested in one particular area instead of having equally distributed. So yes, it is important that we read through each and every domains very precisely, and making sure that we understand them, instead of just skipping few domains or few topics, thinking that it might not be very important from the exam perspective. So this was all about the syllabus. What are the exam specifics? So after 2017, it happened in December, and if I remember correctly, it was 18th December 2017 when IC²
Hello.
decided. Yeah, someone have any questions? Okay. So December 2017, after when IC² decided to move from the linear format to CAT format. So before December 2017, CISSP examination, the duration itself was a kind of furious for a lot of people who wanted to appear for the examination. So in the linear format, the examination was for 6 hours, and the candidate used to get 250 questions, which they have to attempt within 6 hours. Now, IC Squared thought of making it into the CAT format, which is Computer Adaptive Test, and reduced the time duration from 6 hours to 3 hours. That's definitely an advantage from an individual's perspective, because the shorter the time duration, you do not have to sit for a long marathon of 6 hours, and they even reduced the
Okay.
questions. So I would request everyone to please go on mute if you do not have any questions. Okay, so they have reduced the number of questions from 250 questions to either 100 or 150. So how does the computer adaptive test format work? So you get a question and you solve it. So based on the response that you have chosen, if it is correct, the next question you'll get, it would be for the difficulty level of the next question would be a little higher, because you chose the right answer for the first question that you've got. If you chose the wrong option, the next question you'll get, it will be of less difficulty from the previous question. So it is actually adapting based on the responses that you're choosing. So initially what used to happen, whenever you have any doubt, you wanted to make sure that you understand the question correctly, what you did, you just flagged the question, and once you have completed 250 questions, you just went back and checked the flagged questions and wanted to make any changes in the responses that you've chosen, you could do that. But from the CAT format, you cannot go back and review the questions or flag the questions anymore. Because why? Why you can't do that? Because the next questions that you're getting, it is based on the response that you've chosen. So make sure that you spend quality time with one question what you're solving, and choose the responses very cautiously before you move to the next question. Okay? Just a small examination tip: whenever you appear for your CISSP examination, uh, please do not change the response unless you are very sure that you might have missed any key points in the question. So it is important that you read the question properly, you reread the question properly, and then read the responses, and then try to answer the question. It's very important that you understand this philosophy of taking the examination. It's very important that you understand that you read the question, you reread the question, and then you read the responses, and then choose it. Okay?
Yeah,
How exactly? Yep.
I have a question.
Sure.
You said that if we provide the answer of one question and move forward, we cannot come
Mm-hmm.
back, right? And based upon our answers, we'll get the difficulty levels, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I was going through some CISSP blogs. I came across the fact that certain people skip some questions, and after they have answered the questions they know, they come back and answer. So the option of skipping is there.
No, you can't do that. I'm not sure where you read, but that's not, and it doesn't happen like that.
Like if we skip the question, is it possible that the next question will be of less difficulty?
I am not sure if that's definitely you can skip the question, but you cannot go back and change answer the question that you have skipped. It
After
won't
we
be
have,
able to, yeah, it won't be able to take you back.
oh, okay.
Yeah. So idea is not to miss any question, because there is no negative marking. So it's important that you choose the responses for each and every questions. Okay, so let me give you a quick quick glimpse of how does the CAT work, or the computer adaptive test work. So there, how exactly the examination decide, the computer decide that you would be passing the exam or you would be failing the exam. So it works on 3 rules. The first one is confidence interval rule. Okay, so the minimum questions that you're going to get is 100 questions. So whenever you attempt the questions and you have reached the 100th question, you've solved it, the computer checks your confidence level. If it meets the 95% of your confidence level, it is going to give you the result is going to be pass. Okay. If it doesn't meet the confidence level of 95%, the result is going to be fail. Okay. The second rule is applied here is maximum length exam rule. So if the confidence interval rule has not been invoked while you reach the 150th question. So for example, you cross 100th question, you reach to till 150 questions, which is the maximum limit of questions that you're going to get in the exam. And still the confidence interval rule hasn't been invoked. So what it is going to check the last 75 questions that you have done. In the last 75 questions, if it sees that you have met all the criteria of passing in each and every 75 questions, the result is going to be pass. In any of the question, it feels that it doesn't, the candidate has not met the proficiency level, the result is going to be fail. Okay. The third rule that applies here is the run out of time rule, or we also call it as a route. So what exactly happens in run out of time? So if the confidence interval rule has not been invoked, so prior to the maximum time of 3 hours, so the candidate's ability is being evaluated from the previous 75 questions. So let's say you have only attempted 90 questions in 3 hours. So the computer is going to check how you have performed in last 75 questions. If in those 75 questions you have met the proficiency level of the each and every 75 questions, the result is going to be pass. Okay, if not, the result is going to be fail. Now what happens if you cannot attempt 75 questions in 3 hours? You are a candidate is automatically going to be failed. Okay, you would be given a whiteboard and a pen, and inbuilt calculator would be there in the testing system. Now in case if you want to just scribble some notes or do some calculations, because yes, there might be some kind of a mathematical questions in the examination. So in case if you need calculator, it would already be there in the system that you're testing in. And the questions are weighted. What does that mean? So the 100 questions you get, it is not equally distributed. So it doesn't mean like, so in 1,000 marks and you're getting 100 questions, it doesn't mean that you're gonna get each questions for 10 marks. So a few questions are gonna be for 15 marks. Yep, anyone has any question? Okay.
Yes, I do. I do have one question. According to you, what would be the best time or ideal time that we can answer one question? Average time for one question to answer.
Your voice was breaking. Please, could you repeat the question?
Sure. I was asking that according to you, what would be the perfect time, the ideal time for solving one question?
So it is all about like the 180 minutes you have got, and you have got 100 questions. So you just divide the time accordingly. So there would be few straightforward questions that it might not take more than 10 or 15 seconds to answer. There would be
Because
some lengthy questions.
that is something which is the computer is going to measure, no? So I believe this confidence interval rule is something which has something to do with time. So I need to know the time frame, like for one question, what would be the ideal suited time?
It is not based on the time, but it is just based on the responses that you're choosing. So if you have, so there would be some straightforward questions that you're gonna solve in. If you know the answer, it's not going to take more than 15 to 20 seconds. But there would be some scenario-based questions which are going to be lengthy. So you need to read this scenario, understand the scenario. That might gonna take some time. So it is okay to spend the time, a little quality time on those questions which are scenario-based. But yes, time management is something we need to practice while we are taking the practice exams, practice questions. So it is advisable that before anyone sits in the real exam, it is very important that you take a good number of practice tests. Minimum that I advise everyone is not less than 5,000 questions. So it's important that you practice 3,000 to 5,000 questions before you sit in the real exam. So that is how you're going to get a good hold of understanding how exactly ISC Square wants you to attempt the question, and what are the, because there are going to be few keywords that is present in the question, which is going to be like double negatives and the best and the most. So these are the things that someone get holds of. The more they practice the question, the more easier it is for them to understand. Okay. So I was talking about the questions are weighted. It means the questions are going to be distributed based on the difficulty level. So you might get a question that is of 5 marks. You might get a question that is of 15 marks. So it is not equally distributed. And it is something that is transparent to the candidate who is taking the exam. You cannot understand, or you cannot see which question has how many marks. Okay, so, and yes, even in the 100 questions that you get, the 25 questions would be the beta questions, or we call it as the questions present for the research purpose. So it is something which is present in the exam, but they are not scored. So even if you do it right, you won't be getting any marks. If you're done wrong, it is not going to impact the score. So it is going to be present there. It is just for the research purpose, the questions which might be included in the later examinations. Okay.
Hello, Prashant. I have a doubt about the root rule. Can you please explain it once again?
Okay. So the root rule is about whenever the examination time, which is 3 hours, that's completed. Okay. And till then, the confidence interval rule has not been invoked yet. So the candidate would be evaluated from the last 75 questions that they have attempted. Okay. So on the basis of 75 questions, if the candidate has succeeded in meeting the examination passing standard, the result would be pass. If not, the result would be fail.
Okay,
Okay.
Prashant. Yeah.
Cool. So what are the resources for CISSP? So this is a graphical representation, a great representation from Ehab
Hmm.
Badawi, a, 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 a real humble guy who was very I'm really thankful for him to sharing this graphical
Hmm.
representation. Uh, this is the number of resources that he used for his exam, but yes, it includes almost everything that is needed. So for the books, there are various books. Official study guide from ISC Square, the 8th edition is the latest one you can utilize, and I would suggest that should be your primary resource to further studies. Then there is the CISSP all-in-one exam guide of the 8th edition. This is something you can use for supplement your studies. Then you have 11th hour study guide. It's a kind of a refresher one. There's a CISSP CBK 5th edition also. It's available. It's not included in this graphical representation, but yeah, that's then another official guide from IC Square. There are various question banks as well as the videos and the additional documents. Now it's very important that whenever you read any book that you choose to read, make sure that you take your handwritten notes. it's very important to prepare your own notes because trust me, your brain is going to thank you later because the enormous amount of syllabus it is there. Not in any human, it's quite natural to forget what they have read in chapter 1 till they reach to the end of the end of the textbook. So it's quite natural. So it's important that you take your handwritten notes so that whenever you want to review it and revise it, it's going to help you. Okay.
Okay.
What exactly are the exam mindset that you need to take when you attempt any questions? I'm going to quickly run through these points. It's not limited to only these bullet points. There
Okay.
are various other exam mindsets. But yes, I try to list down a few important points that I believe every candidate should have these thought process before while they're attempting the questions. So whenever you attempt a question or you get any problem in CISSP, make sure that your role is not as a technical person, but it is as a risk advisor or a chief information security officer or a senior management. So we need to understand that this exam is a managerial exam. It is going to talk about any problem at the organizational level. It is not going to talk about any specific business function. So you need to have a mindset of a chief information security officer or a senior management. Just wear the management hat whenever you solve these questions. I would again request everyone to please go on mute if you do not have any questions. Okay, so make sure that you do not fix the problems, but fix the process. Because if you're going to fix the problem, that is something, a technical responsibility. If you're going to fix the process, it is a management responsibility. Okay, we need to understand who is responsible for security, whose job it is. Is it just a responsibility of one individual or a team who is responsible for taking care of the security? No, it's not. It's our thing. It's the responsibility of each and every people of in the organization. Okay. It is also important to understand how much security is enough. We need to make sure that we are investing in the solutions or investing in our assets based on the criticality and severity of it. Okay. Every decision starts with risk management. Anything, any process that you initiate, any application that you want to procure or you want to build, make sure that it starts with risk management. So it is all about identifying and evaluating your assets. Any organization you talk about any,
Rashad,
sorry, yeah,
yeah, are you sharing any screen?
the screen is visible. Is it not, guys?
No.
Yeah, it is visible.
It is.
It is visible.
So we are able to see, yeah, we are able to see the screen like
It is
exam
visible.
mindset. Is that one? Is that the latest one?
Right, it's exam.
It is not visible.
Oh, it is not visible. Okay, because I see there are a lot of people who can see the screen.
It says that no screens or cameras are being shared.
It's visible. It's visible.
Okay, okay, sure.
That's something strange because it seems like a lot of people can see it and there are a few who cannot see it. Probably you want to just drop and rejoin to make sure that it's visible for you guys.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. We'll do that.
Okay, no problem. Okay, yeah, I was talking about no matter where you work, which organization you work for, human life is always number one priority. Whenever you come across any problem and if it talks about saving human life, that is where you need to focus. Okay, the human life comes first. Then security should be baked in rather than bolted on. The statement means you need to include security at the very first phase, and it has to be an integral part of each and every phases. Instead of you come up with a solution and then you reach out to security, hey, I've created a product, can you just evaluate from the security perspective? No, that's not the right way to do it. You need to involve security at a very initial phase. Then we have layered defense. So layered defense is about having defense in depth. So there's not only one control which is going to protect the assets, but there are various other controls implemented just to ensure in case one control fails, there is another control which is present there just to make sure your data is or your asset is protected. A very common example for layered defense is your multi-factor authentication. In case if your credentials are compromised, there is another level of authentication available to protect your data. People are your weakest link because humans or any human being can do any mistake, or it might not be intentional each and every time. There could be some negligence, there could be some error which might lead to a big compromise. So it is very important that we train our people really well. We keep them aware about the security each and every time. Okay, then always think about the overall risk and remediation steps for each technology. So whenever you get any concept like let's say VPN, so you need to think about the risk associated to VPN. What are the various remediation that we could take for those risks, and what are the various tools, components, and various solutions available. So it's important to think about each and every aspect of risk and remediation. And whenever you think about security, always think about CIA. CIA is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Now, because the security revolves around these three pillars, we also call it as the security triads. So whenever you have to protect anything, the only and sole objective is to make sure that we are protecting confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data or the systems. Apart from all the technical capabilities that we have discussed so far, it is very important for us to behave ethically. It is important for us to behave in a way so that it doesn't cause any harm to other individuals or any other organizations or systems. So it is one of the 4 pillars of code of ethics that we all have to adhere to. Once we sign up for the examination registration, we have to go through the code of ethics. Whenever we clear the examination and you're granted a CISSP credential, it is very important that you behave ethically and you follow the code of ethics. Okay. All controls must be cost justified. It would be foolish if I'm going to invest $100,000 in my countermeasures just to protect an asset which has a value of $200. So the cost benefit analysis is very important. Now, senior management support is very important in any security program. Until unless we do not have their endorsement, it is not going to be the entire program or a project is not going to be successful. So we need to seek their support and approval before we start any process or any program in the security. Okay. So this was a kind of a very high level about examination mindset. Whenever you get any questions, try to think about these pointers, and then probably you would be able to get closer to the right choice. Okay, moving forward, we are going to talk about the examination outline for each and every domain. And I'm not going to take much of the time here because I think it is going to be good if to answer your questions in case if you have any problems. Okay. So domain 1 is security and risk management. So it is this domain has majorly three areas that is going to talk. It talks about. So it talks about the organizational risk management, about the policies and the guidelines and the standards. Then it talks about the business continuity management, and it also talks about the laws and the various laws that is applicable across the globe. What are the various compliance and regulations? So let's talk about each and every point really quick. So understand and apply the concepts of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. It is important that we understand these three terms and try and figure out how exactly we are going to protect it. So evaluate and apply security governance principles. So it talks about the various business strategy, the goals and the missions and the objectives. And it also talks about the organization's roles and responsibilities. What are the various security control frameworks? A very important concept that it talks about is the due care and due diligence. From exam perspective, it is very important for us to understand the difference between due care and due diligence. Then determining the compliance requirements. What are the various contractual, legal and industry standards and various regulatory requirements are there. Then what are the various privacy requirements? So because as a security professional, we might have to see security from a various geographical regions. So laws and regulations varies from country to country, and area specific are there. So for European Union, we have GDPR, and there are various other laws that it needs to talk about. Then understanding legal and regulatory issues that pertain to information security in a global context. So like any cyber crimes and data breaches that happens, how do we deal with that? Then there are various intellectual property requirements like copyright, trademark, and patents and trade secrets. So it's important for us to understand these terms. Then we have trans-border data flow law and various any import and export that we make. So what are the controls that we have to follow? Okay. Then, like I said, understand and adhere to and promote professional ethics. So I talked about IC Square Code of Ethics. It's important that we read them and understand them and we abide to it. And not only in your professional career, but from the exam perspective as well, it is very, very important topic that we need to understand. So IC Square Code of Ethics, it is indeed a very important topic from the exam perspective. Okay, then we have development and document and implementing the security policies, standards, procedures, and guidelines. So what exactly are the policies and standards? What are the difference between policy, standard, procedures, and guidelines? There's another term that includes, we call it as a baseline. So it's important that we understand the differences and where exactly what area is applicable. Okay, then we have identify, analyze, and prioritize business continuity requirements. So it's the second phase of the of this domain where we talk about business continuity management. So we need to understand how to develop and document the plan, the business continuity plan. Then what is business impact analysis, and what are the various steps of business continuity? Okay, then understand and apply risk management concepts. So what exactly is risk management? What are the various steps that we follow in risk management? So once you identify the assets, you identify the threats and vulnerabilities, then you understand the exposure factor and how you calculate the risk of the any asset that you have identified. Then what are the various responses to the risk? Or if I have to say it like this, that what are the various ways to treat the risk? So there's a mitigation, you can transfer the risk, then you can avoid the risk, or you can accept the risk. So there are the various things that we can do. then it is important for us to understand the NIST risk framework. Okay, then within this particular topic, we also look into the various type of controls like preventive controls, detective controls, and compensating controls, corrective controls. Okay, then understand and apply threat modeling concepts and methodologies. It is important, indeed very important topic from exam perspective. So threat modeling methodologies and concepts like there a STRIDE model from Microsoft, then there is a DREAD model and various other models we would like to go through. Just a basic understanding is very important. Then you have applying risk management concepts to the supply chain. So any risk that is associated to your hardware and software of the services. So whenever you want to procure the services or any product from the third party, it is important that you do the third party assessment. Okay, then what is this minimum security requirement that you expect the vendors to provide you? Then establish and maintain a security awareness, education, and training program. It is, if you have all the controls in place, but you do not have the people trained about it, you do not have the people made aware about why exactly we have the controls in place, the entire investment in the controls gonna just fail, because you need to train the people. You need to make sure that your people are aware about the security, and you need to educate them so that they can understand the significance of having security in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this was about domain 1. Moving towards domain 2 is asset security. Relatively a smaller domain. It doesn't have much of the details like we saw in domain 1. So what exactly this domain is all about? So identify and classify information and assets. Any security that you want to implement on your assets, it is going to be driven based on the data classification or the asset classification. So if you do not have any classification, you would not be very sure what exactly kind of controls you want to implement. So in an organization, you would have a public information and you would have a sensitive information or the confidential information. So you do not want to invest money on the controls to protect your public information, because that is meant to be public for people, and you want people to read about it. And on the other side, if you have confidential information which is intended only to any restricted audience, you want to protect it and you want to make it available for those audience. Okay, so data classification, asset classification. Then it is important to determine who is going to own the asset. So maintain information and asset ownership is important topic from this domain. Then protecting the privacy. Now you need to get the roles and responsibilities defined in an organization so that they would be accountable for the protecting the data and privacy. So who is going to be the data owner, and who is going to be the data custodian, and who is going to be the data or the administrator of the that particular data. So from the privacy perspective, we are going to talk about the data controllers and data processors, and what exactly is data remnants, and these things are very important. Then ensure appropriate asset retention. So how long do you want to retain the data or any asset? It is driven through the business requirement and the legal requirement. So we're going to talk more about the retention policies as well. Then determine data security controls. So it is important to understand the data states, what exactly is the state of the data. Then difference between scoping and tailoring, why exactly they are in place, and how do we utilize it. Okay, so, and yeah, what are the various data protection methods? And the last topic for this domain would be establish information and asset handling requirements. So how you are supposed to handle the assets. So you need to make sure that you label them, you mark them. So there would be a lot of backup tapes. So you need to make sure that you're labeling the backup tapes properly so that they are handled properly. So these are the few things that we would be talking in domain 2. Okay, domain 3, security architecture and engineering. It's a huge domain, consists of 3 different areas. One is the security architecture, and the second one is the cryptography, and the third one is the physical security. So implement and manage the engineering process using secure design principles. So what is the secure design principles in the security? We are going to talk about it. What are the various security models? So there are various security models like Biba, Bella Padula, and Clark and Wilson, and several others. It is very important from exam perspective that we understand the not only how they function, but also the implementation and applicability of these security models. Then selecting controls based on the system security requirements. Based on our requirements, it is we are going to choose what kind of controls we are going to implement in the systems. Then it is important for us to understand the security capabilities of information systems, like how exactly we are going to implement the memory protection. Then we have trusted platform module, the TPM, the chips that comes with our systems, and how encryption and decryption gonna happen. Okay. Then assess and mitigate the vulnerabilities of security architecture design and solution elements. So it is very important that So it is very important for us to understand the security architecture and design and understand what are the various vulnerabilities could be available in those designs and how it could be impacted by any uh, threat outside. So we need to understand those threat vectors and try and find out the mitigating solution. So these mitigation of vulnerabilities could be available in the web-based system. So we're going to understand about various web application security attacks like OWASP.net. Please, I think someone is not in mute. Please, can everyone go on mute and only unmute yourself when you have any specific questions because there is some background noise coming in. Thank you. So we need to understand about the web-based web-based security attacks like cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery, and what are the SQL injections, and many more. And then on the mobile systems, we would need to understand what is the MDM solution, mobile device management solution, because now organizations are supporting BYOD, which is bring your own device. So that invokes a lot of threats, and how we are prepared to manage that, and mitigating vulnerabilities in the embedded systems like your Internet of Things, your industrial control systems, and various cloud-based systems, etc. Then you have applied cryptography. So it talks about the cryptographic lifecycle management, like key management, and what exactly, how do we go ahead and choose the algorithm. Please, can you go on mute because there's some background noise and it is definitely going to be going to disturb a lot of folks out here.
I think Sahil is a web guy, has got some issues I've been noticing for a while. Sahil, if you want to probably check if there's some problem at your end, because it is really very disturbing.
Okay, so yeah, so we were talking about the applied cryptography. So we're going to talk about the various cryptographic methods, so various algorithms, symmetric, asymmetric, and various other types of symmetric and asymmetric algorithms. And then we have public key infrastructure, and what are the various key management practices that we have to follow. Then what are the digital signatures? Okay, and we need to understand how we protect the integrity of the data through hashing, and then how do we make sure that systems and data or the communications have non-repudiation. And indeed, important to understand the cryptographic attacks. Okay, then we have the security principles to the site and facility design. This is where we talk about the physical security. How do we choose the choose a physical infrastructure, and how it is going to help you in implementing the site and facility security controls. Like, we're going to talk about the design of the infrastructure and how it is affecting the environmental issues, and various physical security controls like CCTV and fire sprinklers, the fire extinguishers, and many more. So it's a kind of a very basic thing that you would probably see each and every day in your organizations, but yes, that is how we are going to understand how they are practically related to security. Okay. Domain 4, communication and network security. Indeed a very important domain from exam perspective. So it talks about implement secure design principles in network architectures. So it would talk heavily on the OSI model, so Open System Interconnection model, which has 7 layers. And it is very, very important for us to understand what are the 7 layers and how they are helpful in communicating with other systems. So it is important for us to understand that what happens in which layer, what are the various protocols associated in each and every layer. Okay, then you have various other topics like converged protocols and software-defined networking, and many more. Then you have secure network components like operations of hardware and transmission media. What are the various things that we do for the endpoint security and network access control devices? Okay. Then we have virtual private network. How does it work? What are the risks associated to it? Then we have virtualization. Then we have switching technologies. It's important for us to understand from exam perspective. Then we have implement secure communication channels according to design, like voice and multimedia collaboration. Then you have how the remote access works and what are the things that we need to make sure if we are providing access to the users remotely. Then we have various data communications, and not to forget about the wireless. It's very important for us to understand how the wireless technology works, what are the various, how it evolved from WEP to WPA2. So it's important from various evolution phases, and about the generations as well. So IEEE standard for wireless 802.11. There are various like A, B, G, N. What are the various frequencies and how does it relate to each other? Okay, moving to domain 5, identity and access management. Well, it's interesting domain because to my understanding, I believe anything that we do in security, we try and protect any unauthorized access to the systems. No matter what, we are just trying to protect the unauthorized access to our systems. So what are the various control physical and logical access to assets like what are the various physical access control and logical access controls. Now, how do we manage the identification and authentication of people, devices, and services? So it's very important for us to understand the complete life cycle of identification, authentication, authorization, and accountability. So that is what it is heavily elaborated in this domain. Then you have integrate identity as a third-party services, like your on-premise, if you want to integrate it with the cloud or with other organizations. So that is where your federated identity come into the picture. It's important for us to understand the concepts of single sign-on and the other types of SSO technology available like Kerberos, a very important topic from the exam perspective. Then implement and manage authorization mechanisms. So it includes a lot of access control models. So you must have heard about probably your organization, respective organizations have the role-based access control. So it's RBAC. Then you have rule-based access control, which is majorly into the firewalls. Then you have mandatory access controls, which is available in the government and the military services. The new inclusion in this this model is attribute-based access control, and an interesting topic, and indeed important from exam perspective. Then manage the identity and access provisioning life cycle. So user entitlement review that happens. It's important that any user who moves out of the organization, their accesses are properly revoked. We do not want the accesses to be carried from one team to another if they take movement within organization. Then how the provisioning and deprovisioning happens. Okay. Then we have domain 6, security assessment and testing. So like I said, while introducing towards the exam syllabus, it is going to be interesting for the folks who have worked or are working into the application security. So it is important for us to understand that what are the various kind of audits strategies like internal, external, and third party. And then conduct the security control testing. So what are the various methods and tools that we use for vulnerability assessment, penetration testing? How important is log review? Then code review and testing. Then you have fuzzing, misuse case testing. Then you have synthetic transaction, various important topics from the exam perspective. But yes, it's a very interesting and not very huge in terms of the content wise. It's relatively shorter in terms of the domains. Then collect security process data like technical and administrative. So you need to understand how the key performance indicators and key risk indicators are made, who is going to be using these indicators. Then management review and approval, these kind of stuffs it is going to talk about. Then analyze the test output and generate report. Who is going to use that report? What are the information that we're going to put in the report that's generated for the management view? Then conduct or facilitate security audits. Okay, so whenever the audit is conducted, it's going to be either external or internal or the third party by the commonly known as the Big Four. Okay. Then we have domain 7. It is security operations. So it indeed a big domain, but yes, very interesting one. A lot of important questions, topics from the exam perspective. So understand and support investigations. So how the evidence are collected and handled. So it's important to understand the terms like chain of custody. Then we need to make sure what are the various investigation techniques and reporting, how do we report and document the findings that we have done in the investigations. Then understand the requirements for investigation types. So there are various like administrative laws and criminal laws and regulatory requirements. and what are the various industry standards. Then conduct logging and monitoring activities. So we must have heard about the Security Information and Event Management, or SIEM. Uh, it's commonly known as SIM. So SIM solution we have used in our organizations, but yeah, how they are useful in logging and monitoring. Then various intrusion detection prevention methods like egress monitoring, ingress monitoring, like DLP solution that we include. Then securely provisioning resources. So it's important for us to understand that we manage the assets and prepare the inventory for them. And for those inventory, we need to make sure that we have a proper configuration management policy in place. Then understand and apply foundational security operation concepts like media management and hardware and software asset management. Then conduct incident management, like so there are various steps of conducting incident management, and it's very important to know each and every steps in the appropriate sequence. So detecting the incident, then responding to it, and mitigating and reporting, and so on. Then you have operate and maintain the detective and preventing measures like your firewalls, your intrusion detection and prevention system, what is sandboxing, what are the honeypots and honey nets, and what are the, how do we do the whitelisting and blacklisting of the applications and resources. Okay, so there we have implement and support patch and vulnerability management. What are the various steps of the patch management and vulnerability management? And it is important for us to understand the change management process again. So these topics of security operations, it's very important for us to understand each and every steps in the right sequence from the exam perspective. Okay. And then you have implement recovery strategies. So remember in domain 1 we talked about business continuity because that's more towards the organizational standards and policy, like a management perspective of business continuity. Here in domain 7 we are going to talk about the recovery strategies. So because it is, and I believe it makes sense if we have the recovery strategies, and because it is a technical aspect of it which deals around the security operations. So what are the various disaster recovery process? So we're going to talk about important terms like maximum tolerable downtime, recovery time objective, recovery point objective, and various disaster recovery plans. The testing the disaster recovery plans like walkthrough test and simulation test and full interruption test, etc. Okay, and then yes, address the personal safety and security concerns like security training and awareness, emergency management. How do you make sure that in case there's an emergency, how your people and personal respond to those emergencies? It's very important that you do a periodic, and I'm sure every organization have those periodic fire drills that happens in our organizations. So it is just to make sure that our personnel are up and ready in case there is some emergency for which we have to respond. Okay, so we are moving towards the end of CISSP, and that's domain 8, so software development security. So this domain talks about how we need to understand and integrate security in software development lifecycle. So what are the various development methodologies? What are the various models like waterfall, then you have spiral, then you have agile. So it's important for us to understand what happens in each and every model, and what are the various drawbacks of which model. And yes, so software development lifecycle, there are various phases of SDLC, and it's important for us to know each and every phase as well as what happens in which phase. It's important for us to understand. Then identify and apply security controls in development environments, like security of the software environments.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
During this software development life cycle, there are certain threats out while the development process goes on, there are certain threats. So are we going to cover that on the software development security as well?
Right, yeah. So anything that's related to from CISSP exam perspective, that's going to be covered in this domain. Okay. Then it is important to assess the effectiveness of software security. So how do we do that? So what are the various kind of testing? So white box testing, black box testing, gray box testing, and not only for the softwares that we have developed in-house, but also assessing the security impact of the systems that we have acquired or procured from third-party vendors. What are the things that we need to take care of it? Okay, then we have to understand we have to define and apply secure coding guidelines and practices. Like what are the weakness and vulnerabilities at the source code level, then what are the APIs, security for the APIs, then what are the various secure coding practices. Then yes,
So I'm going to cover the testing part also in detail, like it's not just functional testing and acceptance testing, then it is alpha beta testing, regression testing, smoke testing. Are these also going to be covered in domain?
Not each and every that you just mentioned, but yes, like it is from the exam perspective, it is important to understand what is unit testing and what is regression testing, what is integration testing and user acceptance testing. So these are
Like,
the few testing methodologies that's being covered in the exam.
like what I believe that regression testing and acceptance testing might be more vulnerable to threats, because in acceptance testing somebody outsider is included while the testing is going on, and in regression testing also there are different patches which we are going to use. So that's so that we are going to cover regression and acceptance also.
Yep. Then the second half of this domain, it talks about the various malicious codes. So what are the viruses and Trojan horses, and what are the worms, and what are the various propagation techniques that it utilizes to propagate into the various systems. Then you have malicious attacks, so various security attacks that happen like denial of services, and there are cross-site scripting, CSRF attack. The OWASP top 10 is going to be covered in this, and many more. So I guess this is where we end the quick descriptions of the exam outline of CISSP. I'm going to take your questions. If you have any, feel free to ask, and I'm going to try my best to answer all your questions.
Prashant,
Yes.
hello.
Yeah.
Uh, you said that requirement for eligibility for the CISSP exam would be 5 years experience or 4 years of a graduate degree, right? Engineering.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, particularly in computer science or any stream is fine.
Any stream is fine. Any stream is fine. Even if it is electronic or civil or anything. Yeah. I mean, it
Okay,
has to be technical.
thank you.
I mean, not civil,
Yeah.
logically, but yeah, it has to be technical degree you have. Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem. Any further questions?
Hi,
Can you
Prashant.
please share the graphical representation slide, because our screen was not available for me at that moment.
Which graphical representation?
Preparation part.
This one, the resources.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so yeah,
hello,
this
Prashant. Can you share the
resources.
presentation?
Unfortunately, I'm afraid I cannot share the presentation, but yes, I believe InfoSec Train is already recording the session, and it is going to be made available after a while. So probably you can look at the video later.
Okay, Prashant.
No problem. Yeah, so this resources, if you're talking about, it is available. You can look at the LinkedIn profile of Ehab Badawi, or find him on the Facebook, or if you can just want to take just a snapshot of it, it can help.
Prashant, I have a query. This is with respect to the preparation which we do with respect to, while preparing this practice questions. So the generally those questions or the question banks would be available online or somewhere. Does it reflects the pattern of exam like 300 questions or the 3 hours exam, or how is it generally?
So indeed a good question, but the examination practice questions that that anyone does, they prepare themselves. So you can see there are various practice question sources listed out here. So you can go ahead and look into the questions. Examination is not going to be anything similar to what you're being practicing so far, because these practice questions are prepared in a way to written in a way for you to prepare for understanding the concept. Whereas in the real exam, it is about the best practices. So whatever the technical knowledge that you've acquired while preparing for this exam, it is just going to, so the real exam, it is just going to test your applicability of those technical knowledge that you've acquired. So it is going to ask you a situation, how you can implement security and keeping cost in mind, because it's a management exam. You need to apply the best security practices, keeping cost in mind.
Thanks, Prashant. And all
No
those
problem.
books which generally mention those are available online or into the market. Is it really mandated to go each line by line, or
No,
it would be
no. Do
how
not beat
generally it
yourself
goes?
so hard in looking at each and every resources. So there are enormous amount of resources available. So a lot of the documents that you can see on the right side, the notes, they all are freely available. They all are free of cost. You can just reach out to the sites where it is hosted. You can go ahead and reach out to them. The books you can find out on Amazon. They are, just choose one resource for as any of the resource as a primary resource from the book. Normally, I advise this IC Square official study guide. It should be a primary source. You can supplement your studies, something that you couldn't understand in this book. You can reach out, read this book, or you just watch some YouTube videos or Google the articles. But yes, focus on one resource. You can choose this one, any resource you want to choose. You can choose CBK 5th edition. But yes, just choose one resource for your preparation. I would advise to choose IC Square official study guide, and you can supplement your studies like domain 8, where the software development life cycle, it's kind of great elaborated in all in one. So you can choose this one for those topics.
Thanks, Prashant. So the ISC2, which is the official study guide, the latest
Mm-hmm.
version is 8th edition, right? Or
8th edition,
interedition?
right? Yeah, it's 8th edition. Yeah,
8th edition. Okay.
right.
Okay. And there is no chances if we are planning in 2020. So there is no change or any plan for the immediate change into the paper pattern, right? Or the
So
syllabus.
far, no. So far, no.
So when this latest modified one is when this latest syllabus has been announced? Any idea?
It came in 2019, I guess. 2019, 2018. Yes, it's from April 2018. April 2018.
April
Yeah.
2018 means okay. It has submission. And generally, what is the duration of the CISSP? It's certification is about it's the duration of the certification validity. Is it 3 years
It
or
is
2 years?
for 3 years. During 3 years, you have to pay the annual maintenance fee of $125 each year, and you have to gain 40 hours of continued professional education. So you need to gain the CPE hours as well. So each year you have to gain 40 hours. So you need to accumulate 120 hours for 3 years.
Okay, thanks, Prashant. That's all from my
No
end. Thank
problem.
you very much.
No problem.
Yeah, hi Prashant.
Yeah. Hello.
Just wanted to know that the questions which you are saying that that would be coming in the exam, those are all objective or subjective questions would also be there.
It is all going to be objective questions. Yes, there are
Okay.
some new inclusion of questions like drag and drop. So drag and drop questions are somewhere you have the questions listed on the left hand side and given options in the right hand side, just like we used to do the match the column uh,
Okay.
during our childhood. So it's similar to
Mhm.
you just need to drag the right options available in the right side and align it to the choices given on the left side.
Okay, and
Uh,
one more thing I just wanted to ask that security is a vast, like evolving domain, vast domain
Mhm.
evolving on a daily basis. You know that the threat vectors and the cyber
Yep.
threats like a point of view. So if we are going for this course, what kind of awareness it will give to us because you are quite experienced in this field. So can you put some light on this? Means like how exactly that would help us.
So CISSP is and I'm gonna speak very candidly here, and I'm going to be very honest with everyone that CISSP is going to help any individual tremendously if they are want to pursue their career in security, or they are in the middle of their career, or probably they have spent several years in security itself. It is going to help because what happens in our day-to-day job that we do, the organization at the organization level, uh, we tend to work in one of the two domains. But CISSP talks about each and everything that's available in the security, from risk management to software security to physical security to cryptography to network security, each and everything. So definitely it gives you a holistic view of everything that happens in security.
Okay. Thanks, Prashant. Thanks.
I have one question.
Okay.
I heard somewhere that in CISSP, no questions have been repeated till now.
Mm-hmm.
So is that so? Like if we practice a pool of questions, or
Mm-hmm.
at least practice 5,000 questions, what if we
Mm-hmm.
get entirely different questions? Like
So,
he got a question that what is the port number of LDAP?
okay, you're not supposed to talk about the question. That's against the code of ethics, and that's normally not a right practice to do. And yes, you are not going to see any questions that you have practiced, be it 5,000 or 10,000. It's not going to be anything same that you have practiced. So like I said, examination is going to be entirely different. It is going to test the technical knowledge that you have acquired through the process of study, and it is going to test the general applicability from the management perspective. It is going to ask you about suggest the best practice, how we are going to secure or fix the process with keeping cost in mind. So you need to keep this mindset, wear the management hat while answering the questions.
So what if I find more than one answer that is applicable?
Sorry?
What if I find more than one answer applicable?
It is going to be there. There are going to be two right choices. That is where you need to understand when the keywords like best option or what is the most used term. So you need to, so this is the thing it is going to help while practicing a lot of questions. So definitely you are going to get two right choices of the answers, which is going to be very similar. But yes, out of four choices, there is only one right answer, and that is the best choice.
So
Unlike
these are
unlike
these
if
are
in the question, unlike in case there is a question, how many, so what exactly is the answer for 2 plus 2? Definitely there's no other question, other answer than 4, right? It has to be 4. So if in the questions like the straightforward ones, definitely there's one definite choice, you can choose it. But for the scenario based and the subjective based questions, you're going to have more than one choice, and which would look like they all are correct. You just have to choose the right one. And this mindset comes when you practice a lot of questions. Okay, I'm gonna take one more question before we wind up the session, because I believe we are already shooting up above the time. So I'm gonna take one more question, and in case if you have any further questions around CISSP, I'm gonna post my email ID. You can drop an email to me. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Okay?
Uh, Hi, Prashant. I just wanted your input. Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Prashant, previous to this conversation, you were talking about if a person is in mid of their career growth and aspiring to become a CISSP engineer. Like I'm on the same scenario base now. I'm in the mid of my career, right? So I do not have any experience on the security domain as of
Okay.
now. But then I just wanted to get into the security domain, being one of my interest area, which I have explored myself. So I just thought, so how will that be helpful for as you have already said, you need to have a 5 years of experience in any of two domains in security, and plus 4 years of education and engineering. So I do not fall in these two criteria as well. I have done my bachelor's degree, not an engineering degree, and as well as I do not have an experience in security domain. So if at all, if I'm aspiring to become, like, if I want to get into security domain and get in this certification done, so how do you suggest?
So
As something a beginner, you can say.
right. So in order to clear this exam or pass this exam, nothing or no one is going to stop you. So once you clear this exam, and if you do not have a related experience, you can apply for the associate of ISC Square till the time you gain necessary experience. So you still have 6 years of time after you clear the exam to apply for the certification or apply for the credentials. So I'm sure, so if you have chosen this career path, you're going to read more about CISSP, and you clear the exam. So clearing the exam is just the major part. I would suggest that's the I would not call it as a difficult part, but yes, the major part. Rest of all the other things will fall in place automatically. So you still have 6 years of time. You can apply for the associate credential, and after you gain the necessary experience, you can just convert your associate credential to CISSP credential.
Okay.
Okay.
So probably I'll touch base with you in a message or something if I need something more details on this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Anytime. Happy to help.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Before we all wrap it up, I have shared the feedback link, and I would just expect each and every one just go through the feedback link, just share your feedback, and it is going to help me as an individual that how did I do and what are the things I can do in a better way. And please feel free to share your honest feedback with the link, and it's definitely going to help me as an individual. And I'm also gonna share my email ID in case if you want to have any further questions, if you want to know more about the CISSP as an exam, I would like to help you out on this. That's my personal email ID. You can reach out to me on that. Okay, so thank you so much. Oh yes, please go ahead. Sorry. Please.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
I have half year of tenure, like half year of time left to claim my CISSP. Like after getting the waiver, I have 6 months of time. And what if in that moment the exam version changes? So
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
If you for the exam once again?
Sorry?
Will I have to reappear for the exam once again?
If you have cleared the exam, that's not gonna change anything. So you just have to apply for your credentials once you have completed the 6 months of time. That's not gonna make you take the exam once again. The changing of the version. No. That's not gonna affect it. That's not gonna affect your credential.
exam has been changed, that's also not going to affect my
So
credential.
till the time, so for example, today you take the exam, today you clear the exam, tomorrow the entire syllabus changes, it is not going to affect your passing result. It's not
I
going
can
to
still.
change anything.
Okay.
Just FYI, guys, as per what I've read somewhere, every 3 years material changes. So next material change for CISSP will be 2021. It won't be changing this year.
Okay. Okay, so with this, thank you so much for taking out time during the weekend. I believe everybody has their own plans and taking out time. Thank you so much for this. You've been a great support and a great audience. Please feel free to reach out to me on my personal email ID. I would like to talk more about your exam aspiration and try to help you out with your queries. I've also shared the feedback link. Please feel free to put your feedback there so that I can take help out of it. Okay, with this, thank you so much. Happy learning and wish you all the very best with your preparation. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Bhagwan. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.